Welcome to Remnants of a Sound Blast. This is the first video that I'm doing, full-length video that I'm doing in quite a while. I've been doing my shorts every day, the Today in Rock History, and so I just wanted to do a more in-depth conversation about one particular album that I mentioned today. That would be Led Zeppelin IV. There's some really cool information surrounding I guess, the marketing strategy of not having a band name or a title anywhere on Led Zeppelin IV's album, yet it has sold more than any other Zeppelin album. Um, Not only is it because it had great music on the album, but maybe it had something to do with the four symbols and the mysticism that kind of caught on to people pretty quick. But whatever the case may be, it was an excellent marketing strategy from what I've read. The reason that they did that was because they got really bad reviews on Led Zeppelin III from a lot of critics, journalists, and editors of rock magazines at the time. Led Zeppelin III did not pan out well for them as far as, the write-ups that they got from critics and whatnot. But I suppose that the idea was, okay, we're going to go ahead and release this next album with no information on it whatsoever, and you're going to see that people are buying our music and they're coming to the shows in groves and groves of people because the music is great, not because of a name, not because of the hype of the name like a Beatles or the Monkees or the Rolling Stones or whatnot. This is going to be about the music, and they really proved that with Zeppelin IV by selling astronomical amounts of units/albums. 37 million to date worldwide. I mean, that is unbelievable. One of the greatest selling albums of all time. Essential part of rock and roll listening. It is an absolute masterpiece in my opinion from start to finish. I think the first time I may have heard any songs from Led Zeppelin IV was because I had purchased the cassette tape from BMG or Columbia House Records and Tapes. If you're old enough to remember, and I'm not going to, say I'm old, I'm 50, but if you're probably in a range of maybe 45 to 55 or a little bit older, you probably remember really well BMG and Columbia House Music Club in the mid to late 80s, I want to say. It might have even gone in through the mid 90s or so, at which point I've probably stopped buying stuff from them a few years ahead of that. But that's how I got a lot of my first cassettes, was from one of those clubs. And you could get, like, I don't know, something crazy, 10 or 15 CDs or cassettes for, like, a few bucks or something like that. I can't believe those companies never went out of business sooner. There must have been some kind of catch to it along the way. Maybe the shipping and handling was pretty hefty, but I don't remember if that was the case. Anyway, that's probably how I got my first Led Zeppelin cassette. I mean, I remember having the cassette. I just can't remember exactly how I got it, but if I had to guess, I'd say it was probably that way. And I collected all of Zeppelin albums that way before BMG kind of, went south, or I stopped following them for whatever reason. But anyway, um, the first time I put it on, I could just remember just playing it start to finish. Back then, I didn't just skip around songs. I would just lock myself in the room, just listen to music constantly. I think that's why I have so much information in my head that I share with you guys every day on these shorts, is because there are parts that I do have to research to find out what albums were released on this particular day, but for the most part, a lot of that stuff I just remember from just listening and studying these bands over years and years. Way before the internet, the only way that you got your information from bands was from magazines and stuff like that. So that was definitely my first experience with Led Zeppelin, was on cassette, Zeppelin IV, start to finish, all the way through. And I remember the one song that probably affected me the most on my first few listens was The Battle of Evermore. There was just something really just special about that song. It's you know, I'm not going to explain Battle of Evermore. I'm sure everybody watching has heard that song, or any Led Zeppelin song, especially from this album, over 1,000 times in their lifetime, probably thousands of times. But there was just something about that song that was really mystical, even more so than Stairway to Heaven. I think it was just something that was so different from everything else on the album. especially because it had a female vocalist singing backups with Robert Plant, which I thought was pretty cool. That was something that they didn't do a lot at all. Um, but I just remember really being drawn to the Battle of Evermore, and it's still one of my favorite Zeppelin songs. But just to give you an idea of the type of music that was out around this time that Zeppelin IV was released, you had Jethro Tull with Aqualung, which is a fantastic album in its own right. I believe a lot of those two albums were recorded or mixed, or maybe a little bit of both, at Island Studios, which they both were kind of sharing, maybe like Studio A and Studio B at the time. So they would occasionally run into one another during the recording or mixing sessions, which also I find very interesting. There's a lot of information on that, that you can read, pull up articles about. There's one that talks about Martin Barr was laying down the solo for Aqualung, the classic solo that we all know. And Jimmy Page was looking through the control room, he was looking through the control room window at Martin Barr as he was recording that famous solo. So that's pretty cool to know that Jimmy Page was watching Martin Barr play one of his greatest solos of all time. And, they kind of sharing that space together. That's pretty cool information to kind of share with you. And when I found it out, I thought it was really cool too. But, Aqualung was out. The Who had Who's Next, which is a fantastic album from The Who. 1971 also had Yes with Fragile, another excellent album. What else? Oh, Black Sabbath had Master of Reality. So that's just to give you an idea of the type of music that was floating around. Some good competition for Led Zeppelin, even though music is not a competition. I guess in some form or fashion, you want to put out a really good piece of work, and you have other bands that are putting out great music as well. So also Rolling Stones, I believe, had Sticky Fingers in 1971. So there was some good music floating around. It wasn't just Zeppelin IV, but Zeppelin IV is just one of those magical albums. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's my favorite Zeppelin album. I think depending on what day it is, I can go with any Zeppelin song as my favorite, and also any Zeppelin album, depending on my mood for that day. Sometimes I might be listening to In Through the Outdoor a lot. There'll come a time where I'll like Zeppelin 3 overall, and it just changes. I could like Presence for 1 week and switch to Zeppelin 2 or Zeppelin 1 and just everything else. Houses of the Holy. There's so many great songs on Houses of the Holy. The atmosphere on that album is just one of a kind, just the ambiance and everything that they captured. But back to Zeppelin 4, like I say, I think that's really interesting that they didn't have any information on the cover, yet it sold so much. It does, a lot of people refer to it as Zeppelin 4, as I do, but also it's referred to as ZoSo or four cymbals. And it's just a phenomenal piece of work. I actually listened to it from start to finish again today, since I had to mention that on my Today in Rock and Roll History, and it's just as good as I remember it being. Classic When the Levee Breaks, that iconic drum beat. I mean, it's just one of those albums that is like a desert island album. You have to have it, or any Zeppelin album for that matter, but we're talking about Zeppelin 4 today. But it's been 52 years today. Also, on a side note, before I cut off this video, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jimmy Page making his guest appearance at the induction of Link Wray on November 3rd, 2023, which was, a week ago? Less than a week? I, like probably many of you watching, would say that I was pretty much in shock to see him on stage performing after so many years. I read that it's been 8 or 10 years since he's done anything live. And I think the last time he did that was something similar, where he played just one song, a one-off song for someone at maybe like a charity event or something like that. But it was really good to see him. I love watching Jimmy Page play. He's just everything about the guy, his presence and everything he's just awe-inspiring to me. He captures my imagination when I watch him, and it doesn't even have to even be anything extraordinary that he's playing. It could just be chords that he's strumming, just like he did on the performance the other night when he played Rumble from Link Wray. It was just cool to see him come out there with the double neck and just sound like Jimmy Page. And I think he's proved to a lot of people by doing that he can still play. I'm not saying that he can shred like he used to, but at least he's competent enough and capable enough to go out there and make some noise. And I think that the world needs Jimmy Page. I think the world needs Jimmy Page. There needs to be more from Jimmy Page. I think a lot of us miss him. We want to hear some new stuff from Jimmy. Jimmy, if you watching, you'll never watch this, but I'm just saying, Jimmy, if you ever see this, we want to see you out there playing, buddy. We want to hear some new music from you. I love all the Zeppelin releases and all of that stuff. I mean, I have my preferences about what I wish that would be released. Maybe something from 1977 live in particular. But as far as Jimmy Page is concerned, solo-wise, I'd love to hear some new music from him. It's been way too long. So I'll leave this video with that note. And I want to also say that I appreciate everyone that's been subscribing to this channel and watching. We all have something in common. We all love great music. In my opinion, I talk about great music, the music that I grew up with, the music that I love still to this day. And I just want to say again that I really appreciate you guys chiming in, commenting when you can, liking, subscribing, sharing, whatnot. It just keeps me going. It gives me confidence to just do more and more videos. And hopefully, if there's something along the way that you want me to discuss, that you'd like me to mention, feel free to leave that in the comments. I read all the comments, and I try and do my best to also respond as quickly as I can to people whenever I get like a notification or whatever. So again, thank you. I'll continue tomorrow with the Daily Rock for November 9th. But until tomorrow, like I always say, y'all keep rocking and stay safe.